All right, so welcome to this week's AMA. The way the AMAs work, if you are watching this for the first time or if you've been here before, just as a little recap, this is to get any and all of your questions answered. So many people come to these sessions because they have a very, very specific question that they want to ask about how to use our tool, or I have this speaking related question, or I have an event coming up, what should I do? Or I want to tee up my tool, or I just gave an event, what should I do next? So any of those kind of catch-all places, this is the place to come to ask your questions. We do this to help support you, to make sure that you're never stuck wherever you are. Some people like to come to these sessions and they don't have questions. They just want to go, I want to know what other people are asking. So I'm just going to jump on. I'm going to listen, and maybe someone's going to ask a question that I have had, but I didn't know how to articulate really well. So if that's you, D, I see you. Welcome. We want you to jump on. I actually think it's very smart and wise to jump on these as much as you can, because this will keep your finger on the pulse of what people are asking, what's showing up, what's happening in the industry, and it's a fun way to see the other unicorn speakers within Talkadot. If you did have a specific question that's just like, it's just easier for me to just come on and ask, that's why we're here. So the way that you can ask your question is by using the raise your hand feature. So if you raise your hand, it'll pop something like this over here,
You can.
and then we'll create a queue and then go through and just answer every question that we can in the way that they show up. So with that being said, let's jump in and have some fun with Diane. What's up, Diane?
Oh, hey. Um, Wish I could have been at Influence. I have not yet learned how to be in two places at once yet. So
I'm working on that too. When you find out, you let me know. I've been
I
working
have
on it.
to, I know, likewise. Okay, I'm trying to figure out if Talkadot is the right platform for me to use. Um, Book launch coming up. 20 podcasts
Mhm,
are in queue,
mhm.
and the goal is to send people to the link of my Amazon listing, which I don't have yet. I'm hoping to get that sometime this week. We're like right at the edge here.
Yeah. When is the
Um,
book launch? What's the date?
September 17th.
Okay, great. It's fun.
So the purpose of the podcasts are to, in those first 30 days, what I've learned is that if you get your Amazon listing very active, then your book doesn't fall into the abyss.
Mhm.
So that's the purpose. So
Are you using a specific? I know you're about to jump into a question, but now my mind's going a little crazy, so I got to ask it. So I apologize. Are you following a specific system for doing your launch? Like, do you have all? Because I know some stuff about that, if it's helpful at all. But if you have a system already, then you don't have to worry about my stuff.
I have I I have somebody else who is doing a portion of the work that has to do with all of the back end Amazon stuff that I have no knowledge about.
Yeah.
To get my book visible on Amazon. The rest of this is on me. My goal, I've already pre-sold this book to speaking engagements. It's not like I'm looking to do a bunch of sales online. Of course, I'm happy for that to happen. I'm not looking for a New York Times bestseller. I'm trying to make this simple and easy for myself.
Copy.
The 20 podcast interviews is like, okay. That's my contribution to making those first 30 days as active as possible. I don't know that I'll be doing much else other than that in social media. Really trying to keep this low key.
Yeah, got it. Cool. Okay, jump in. I just happy to if I have any insights, but you seem like you got a good system. So, but anyway, you have a
Yeah.
question. I'll let you go to it.
So I'm trying to figure out is Talkadot the right platform. Obviously, I want to collect speaking engagement leads. I
Mhm.
do not need the feature asking people how well I did on their podcast because we're speakers here. I think I can honestly say that when I go and listen to all these other podcasts, that the talk is mumbo, mumbo, mumbo. I know I'm going to nail it. I could be succinct and to the point and impactful, right?
Mm.
Um, don't need that. And I do, and I would like to send them to the Amazon link. That would be the gift. Don't know if this is the right platform for what I'm looking for.
Mhm. So your goal is to get speaking leads, and your goal is to send people to the Amazon list. That's the objective. And you're trying to say, when I'm on the podcast, how do I achieve those objectives? Is that right?
Yeah,
Okay. So a couple of things. Um, there's a very strategic reason why we've built Talkadot to be a feedback mechanism and not just a lead generation tool. Many people are much more open to the idea of like, hey, listen, I'd love to get your thoughts. I'd love to get your feedback. That's going to trigger a much more. It's less um, transactional when it's like, hey, if you want to book me to speak, go here. Some people might just be like, well, it could feel transactional, but everyone feels like it's like a warm ask. So when you're asking people for feedback, one of the things that I would also, in terms of just the mental process for it, is it's a way to not transaction pitch or do anything that might like cause a host or a client to kind of be like, that was a little
got
that
it.
was a little on the nose, right?
Yeah.
So by saying, "Hey, you know what? My goal is to know like this topic I'm super passionate about. I'd love to get your feedback on it. And as a thank you for giving me your feedback, I want to give you access to a special link." Now, typically, the link, the thing that you give away, typically is something that's going to make the audience go, "Ooh, I want that." So if you had a link to like I don't know, I'm making this up now, like a discounted price or like normally it's blah, but and I don't know if Amazon does that because I know I've seen them do the little discount, but I don't know how like it's been a long time since I've done it. So I would encourage you to say yes, you can still get the speaking leads because our tool will move in different directions based on how people answer. So if someone just wants to give you feedback, you might get a really nice testimonial that you could be like, oh, I can use that. I didn't have that asset before because they're talking about my content.
Yeah.
And then you'll be able to pull the speaking leads from the people who are like, oh man, if it's this good, yeah, I'd like to book her. And then you can put the link as the bonus, and they'll get access to that link at the end of the survey, and they'll get that email to them as well. And if anyone's a booking lead, they'll be categorized for you. So in terms of achieving those goals, you can 100% do that within Talkadot. You do currently have to do it as a feedback mechanism. If you wanted to do it just as like, hey, book me to speak, you might want to use a different tool in that case.
Okay, that's so helpful. I've been going in circles in my head. So the what I see is exactly what you're saying, but the link will go to the same gift that my people get when I speak. I have a beautiful web page with all kinds of resources on it. Um, they put the other link for my book in the show notes.
Mhm,
So that would be an easy way to get people to the book link.
mhm,
The last question I have is using Talkadot for podcasts. Well, those podcasts play on and on and on for years and years and years.
mhm.
Is there a, how do I know? Do you have a notification
Mhm. Yeah, so
on,
you wanna use
on,
the for your podcast, what you're gonna wanna do is the lock code feature. Did you see that feature there?
yes, and I did it, but I don't know what I'm a bit clueless about what that is.
I got your back, right? So let me kind of show you how the lock feature works, just so you can be aware, because this is going to be very helpful for you and for everyone. So what you're doing is something that's called asynchronous feedback, right? So people are going to give you feedback at different times. It could be a week from now, a month from now, or a year from now. So the way that our system currently works is like this talk that I did in July. I got these 220 responses, and they all came during a certain period. Now, if I knew that this one was gonna be asynchronous, all I want to do is click on the three dots, go to edit event, scroll down to the advanced settings, and then under the advanced settings, create a code that's just going to be for podcasts, right? So it could be podcasts in this particular example, and then hit save changes. Now, what's going to
So wait a
happen?
minute, are you
Mhm.
on,
This is on the
you're,
talks.
this is on the actual talk. Okay.
Yep. So when you create your code, you want to go to that talks when it comes in and then lock that code. And you'll see it has this lock feature. And then what will happen is every single time someone gives feedback for that particular code, it's not going to go all over the place. Like, it's not going to create a new response today, tomorrow, a week from now. It's going to push all of those responses into just this report. And then where it says new, you see how it has the 193 in blue here? That means I got 193 new leads. When you have new responses that come into your talks, you'll see it go 1, 2, 3, and then it'll say new right here. So you'll get a notification that, oh, I've got some new responses to my podcast. I've got some new responses to my feedback, but it'll all go into one report. Or if you wanted to create feedback for each individual podcast to track, like how many responses did I get on this podcast? How many did I get on that? You would just create a code for each podcast and then lock that code and use a different one if you want to do that level of tracking.
Awesome. Grateful that this is recorded. I'll have to re-listen and follow, but super
Yeah.
helpful. That I think you answered all my questions, and I hit the ground running this week, so I got to get this thing organized.
I love to hear it. The main thing to keep in mind is it more important for you to know, like, I just want to track podcasts as a whole, or do I want to track individual shows? If you want to track podcasts as a whole, create one code. Once it's locked, then this is the last thing because I didn't show you this and I just want you to be aware of it. When you go over to the codes section here on the left hand side, you hit codes. So let's say the podcast is the one that's locked. If you just click on these three dots and go to copy code link right here, this would be the link that directly goes to that particular code. So you could give that to your podcast host and say, put this link in the show notes. And then when the person clicks on that link in the show notes and gives you feedback, it goes directly to podcast and they don't have to type in the word podcast. Because if you give them your generic
Okay,
Talkadot
got it.
link, they would have to manually type in. And with this, it just enters it for you.
Thank you.
Cool. You're welcome.
Super
May your
grateful.
book, may your book be read by hundreds of thousands of humans.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right. Next question. Who, if you have a question, go ahead and raise your hand. Um, oh, by the way, if you're using the lock code feature, if you're giving an in-person presentation, you probably don't need the lock code feature. If you're doing like a virtual recorded webinar, that's typically when you're going to want to use the lock a code feature. So if anyone's like, wait a minute, lock a code, I didn't know about that. If you're doing in person or you're doing virtual that's live, you don't need to lock it. But if you know, like in that particular case, that people are going to watch this asynchronously over a long period of time, locking the code will make your life easier. And once you lock that code, you can only use it for that one talk or that one use case. So if my code is like leadership and I'm like, oh, I'm doing a new leadership talk and I lock that code, all of the feedback that comes in for leadership will go into that one report. So you really want to lock a code for a single use that's asynchronous over time. Just for clarity, feel free. Janice, are you raising your hand about that or something else?
Yes, it
Okay.
kind of, yes. So, in one case, one of my events, they recorded it. So I'm
Yeah.
getting all these additional one line,
Mhm.
what do you call
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. Just one feedback. It's like
One
one.
feedback, and I have to go through and try to, and I have I think two or three of those situations. So I have to go through and figure out, even though I have changed my codes based on your suggestion,
Mhm.
there are a couple of them where I have to figure out, well, which event did this person go to? And it's
Mhm.
really time consuming.
Yeah, and if you know that one of your clients is gonna
Record.
record, I would recommend creating like what I typically do is create a code that's the name of the client. So
Yeah,
like if my client's name was like NCAP, like I recently did that in my account here. I'll just show it to you real quick. Um, so this talk that I did here, this client, NCAP is the code. That's the name of the organization.
right.
We had zero internet service when I presented. We were literally in a barn in the middle of Nebraska, and there was no internet.
Oh
So
my God.
I told everyone to take a picture of the QR code, and I gave them the link, and I was like, all right, go ahead and use it. So I know that if anyone uses this code, it's going to come into for this one. And then I can easily, which I probably should because I haven't done this yet, go in and just lock that code.
Is there any
Uh,
disadvantage to locking the code?
the main disadvantage is if I ever used NCAP again,
Yeah.
all of that feedback will go into this report
Well,
and
you
not
would, yeah. Well, you would put NCAP 2024 or something to make it you wouldn't,
exactly.
you
Yeah,
wouldn't,
that's the
yeah,
only downside is people will create, like, let's say like you created your signature code, which is say banish,
yeah,
right? And if you lock that one and
yeah,
then I want to use it again, then that's where that's really the
yeah,
only
yeah.
downside
I,
is that confusion.
well,
Other than that,
you advised for us to create a different code for every event anyway.
you can. You don't have to, right?
I know,
But you can, yes.
but
And
it
the reason I say
helps.
that, for some people, like if you're like someone who's like, hey, this helps me organize it, I say go for it. Other people are like, I do one leadership talk, I'm just gonna use the code lead, I'm gonna keep it moving. So it really depends on the use case. So if it works for you, keep going,
And
Janice.
some people don't do their Talkadot until a day later. Some people
Yeah.
just don't do it, even though you give them time right then.
Yeah.
They're busy doing something else.
That's called the human condition, and you are
Yeah.
correct.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome, Janice. Nilu, what's poppin' loppin'?
Hello. Hi,
Hello.
everyone.
How are
So
you?
now I'm so intrigued because I didn't think about this, but it's piggybacking off of Diane's question, which is you were showing your codes and you have podcasts. So how do we use Talkadot with podcasts? Never even thought of that as an option.
So if you're on a podcast, right? So let's say you and I are doing a podcast right now, and we're like, I'm talking about this cool thing and I'm teaching, some cool stuff. I'm like, hey, I'd love to know what you thought about, this podcast. I would I'd give the link to the podcast that was interviewing me. They would put in the show notes, hey, give Arel feedback on his podcast appearance. They would click on that link and then give me feedback on it. So yeah, and it's just a way to capture, like, if you're ever like, hey, I want to capture more feedback, or I think I might capture leads from this particular group. Like, let's say, for example, you were doing a uh, uh, you're on an association's podcast, right? They're like, oh, we'd love to have you on there. And you're like, yo, everyone listening to this
Hmm.
could potentially, like, not every podcast is built like that, right? Some of them are like, tell me about the toughest thing you've ever overcome, and you're just doing like personal shares. But if I'm doing like an industry specific podcast and I'm like, the listeners are people who could book me, hey, look, if I could grab one, I may not, but if I could, like, at least I'm spinning the wheel and seeing what shows up. So I would create I used to create personally, I sometimes created different ones for the different podcasts I were on, and then I was like, it was just too much work, and ultimately it's not the use case that I cared for. So just create one generic one, lock it,
Hmm.
and then just see what happens.
That's so interesting. It would never even occur to me to do that with podcasts. I just do it with speaking, like
Yeah,
not, yeah, you know what I mean? Like live.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, our primary use case is still speaking engagements, but there's no
Yeah.
reason to not, like, the worst thing that happens is you get feedback. Like, the best thing that happens is you get a dope testimonial or you get a lead. So, and you build your email list too. Because a lot of times when you go on podcasts, um, um, there's no real way to really measure. Like, well, because a lot of us know podcasts are a good, like, kind of celebrity branding, get our name out there mechanism, but it's actually really hard to measure. Like, because I don't know, like, okay, maybe your host will give you download numbers, but like almost no one does, right? Like, no one actually gives you download numbers. And there's no real way to drive people unless you have some type of a lead magnets set up. So Talkabout's a great way to say, hey, let me know what your thoughts were. And as a thank you for everyone who's listening, when you give me feedback, you're gonna get this cool thing. So it could be a really great use case to give a shot.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you so much. I can't sing the praises enough because like my email list, I just started Talkadot in November of last year, and my email list has grown like amazing. So I really love Talkadot. I can't sing it enough. So thank you.
Well, listen, if you're our cheerleader, we're your cheerleader. We'll make it work. Yeah. Thanks so much, Neil. I appreciate you. Steve, what's up, brother?
Hey, everybody. Question for you. I'm sure this has come up before, and I looked through your resources and maybe I didn't look in the right place, but is there a best uh, best practices on literal timing, cadence, et cetera, of follow-ups? Because I'll tell you what, I agree with Nilu. It's a great resource. I've loved Talkadot, but my follow-up, people say they want to hire me or know someone who does, is it's not as strong as it could be. So I just don't know if there's like this many emails, this is when you do it, here's what you say. I
Yeah,
mean,
I'll
I'll
tell you.
put my own words, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I'll tell you what I recommend, and I can give you access to. I don't know if someone Pogan or I'm not sure if Pogan. If you could find the email sequence, I'm gonna look for it too. But just not to try to multitask here. So here's what I typically recommend. I recommend a 5 email sequence for any booking leads, and like a 3 to 4 for referral. Mind you, this is always changing.
Right.
Like I'm constantly testing new stuff. So like I say this today, you might hear me say something later. This is what I'm currently doing. So it's 5 emails for bookings. So what I'm doing is 4 emails for referrals. And then after that, everyone gets put onto my weekly newsletter. So I have a weekly newsletter. It's already pre-written. There's 50 of them that are scheduled that go out. So everyone who's a potential lead will get, hey, thanks so much for checking. So I'll get the link for the emails and
Okay.
I'll throw it in the chat. But basically, the first one is like, oh my gosh, thanks so much. You want to talk? Let's do this now. And the main thing of the first email, and we have this pre-built into our system. The first thing for any lead is to first identify, is this a now or a later thing, right? Because there are some people that can book you now, and there's some people who are like, I can book you, but I can't even think about it until 6 months from now. So typically, what happens is if I can book you, but I can't book you until like 6 months from now, I may not respond because I'm like, I can't, I can't mentally handle this right now. I've got like 1,000 other things on my to-do list. So my first thing is trying to suss out, hey, is it now or is it later? Right? If it's later, when roughly is later? And then based on their response, I'll then go into my calendar and then I'll make a note to myself to follow up with this person. So if someone says to me, which is very common, this is really interesting, but I can't even handle this until November. And I'm like, cool, like November 2nd. And then I'll either and this one's a little risky. So like, I'll tell you why this is risky. What I've done in the past is I would schedule an email today to go out to the person on November 2nd, right? So you can like are you familiar with the scheduling emails in
Yeah.
advancing, right? So I would schedule it and then forget about it because it's already handled. However, if that person responds to me or messages me before my schedule, I've technically forgotten about it. And then they might get a weird email from me. Um, like, dude, what are you doing? We already talked. And that happened to me once and I was a little embarrassed. So what I do now is I just go into my calendar and I schedule it for later to follow up when they ask me to. The second email is basically just a touch point. So the first email is, do you want to meet now or later? Second one is, just want to make sure you got my email. Third one is, hey, you know what? Haven't heard from you. Did this reach you? Fourth one is like, I feel like I might be bothering you. Don't want to bother you. Let me know. And then fifth one is like the quote unquote breakup email, which is last try. And it's like, hey, usually if I email someone 4 times, I haven't heard from them. It either means they're super busy or they hate me and they hope I get hit by a truck one day. Let me know which one it is for you. Like, playfully, I say that. And then after that, it's just put them into the nurture campaign. And then if they get good messages from me, as long as they don't unsubscribe, um, it, I'll let the timing take care of itself.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
you got it. Okay, cool. I will find the let me just jump in and see if I can find this real quick. Hold on. Boop. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. Email. Hold on now. Bear with me. Hold on. It'll take me. I'm just going in and search. Hmm. Here we go. Hold on. All right, here we go. Got it. There. So if anyone's interested in the sequence and they want to play with it, they can grab it there. Okay, great. Thank you, Steve. Who else has a question? Thank you all for joining. We had a bunch of people jump on while we were doing this. For those of you just joined, the way the AMA works is this is all here for you. This is for you if you have questions. So if you have a specific question about speaking, about the tool, use cases, everything's on the table. I'm going to do my best to answer and help. If you have a question, just use your raise the hand feature, which is this one right here, and then just raise your hand and we'll go through the questions. And if you're just here to listen because you're just trying to absorb what other people are talking about, I'm here for that too. I like that. What's up, Rick?
Hey, Earl, how you doing?
Good, brother.
All right, here's my question. So I'm going to be speaking to several groups of business owners and CEOs of small, medium businesses. Um, I work with companies that want to save money or make money by teaching them negotiation skills. And I thought, hey, why not throw this out here? What is a good way to open that? I'm looking for a punchy kind of opening. And frankly, I've got a little bit of writer's block, so I just thought I'd see if
On
anybody's got some
opening the keynote
suggestions.
itself?
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is going to be a series of 3-hour workshops.
You said 3 hour or 1 hour?
Three
Okay. So you have a
3 hour.
3 hour negotiation workshop to do, right?
You
And
got it.
And you're like, how do I open this up to kick off the 3 hour workshop?
Yeah, exactly. I've got some things I'm kicking around, but I'd really like to throw it out to some experts and just see what comes in.
Well, I'll tell you the genres of how I like to start. I do either a series of 3 questions. The so there's a thing in comedy which is called the rule of 3, which is things are funnier in 3. That's why there's like the Three Amigos and all that kind of stuff. So when I open my keynote, I'm trying to throw out a relatable situation, and then something that should make them laugh. So the way it sounds for my keynote is, by show of hands, who here has ever given advice to someone who's had a problem? You knew exactly how to solve that problem. You told them everything they needed to do. And when they left, you just knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that they were not going to follow your advice. All right, so that's question 1. And then question 2, how many of you ever had a conversation with someone and no matter how often you think about it, you replay it in your head over and over, you just can't seem to understand why the person made the decision that they made? And then everyone goes, oh, yeah, raise their hand. And then the third one is, and have you ever had a conversation with someone where, if you're being honest with yourself, it made you lose faith in the future of humanity? And then everyone laughs and raises their hand. And then I go, well, good news. I'm going to show you how to solve all 3 of those problems. I'm going to show
All
you how to
right.
do this. I'm going to show you how to do this. And I'm going to give you, as a side benefit, a further, like, so you could
Right.
open it up with like scenarios in negotiation that are ubiquitous to everyone. And the key with the 3 yeses is that it's got to be something that everyone can say yes to. So for example, if you use a fringe case, like, who here has ever been doing a merger and acquisition and they wanted to take 75% of your company right away? You're like, wait, like maybe one person, I don't know. I don't even know if that's a real scenario, right? But like maybe one person will raise their hand. But if you've ever said, how many of you have ever been in a negotiation with like a spouse where you wanted them to do this, or with a kid, and what about business, or maybe you flop it and you go business and then kid, or business and business and
Yeah.
then wife or something. It'll get people jokey and like having fun, and then you would introduce, here's how I'm going to help you with those 2 scenarios, and maybe as an added benefit, like your negotiations with your spouse will be, so that's like a very formulaic way that I've opened many presentations that have worked. So it's kind of like, I don't know if it's the perfect way for you to open, but it's one that just has worked for me over and over and over again.
Yeah, I could work with that. Has anybody here ever bought anything? Has anybody here ever sold anything? Has anybody here ever had to load a dishwasher together with your spouse? Something like that.
Exactly, something like
Yeah.
that. Exactly, right. And it's like, oh, well, you're gonna, if you can elicit some type of like, oh, yeah, whatever,
Yeah.
that laugh is, like if you can elicit that, like, yeah, I get that on the third one. And that's just kind of replaying it in your head. And I think ultimately, like saying, like, for example, and I'm not a negotiation expert, but I might say things like, who here has ever felt like they were about to buy something, but they were nervous they weren't getting the best price, or that the person didn't have your best interest in heart, How many people have ever felt like, and how many of you have ever tried to get your spouse to listen to you and it didn't work, or I don't even know if that,
Yeah.
you understand where I'm going with it, or I'm rambling a little bit here, but I think you get the gist of how those work. And it literally, for any topic, you just present universal problem, kind of funny thing, and you'll always get a laughter on the third one. You'll always get like this is so refreshing, and then it introduces ways to solve that problem for people moving forward.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. And feel free to go into the Talkadot community, and when you have your 3 questions, if you want to post them, um, let us know. Like, we could maybe give you some feedback, or if you're like, oh, I'm trying to decide between this one and that one, which one do you think is more relatable? Do a little field research before you go out there. It might be helpful
Yeah.
as well.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right, you're welcome, Rick. B. Stevens. By the way, just for the record, for anyone, sorry for cutting you off there, B. Stevens, but for anyone, there's 1,000 ways to open presentations. I just want to be clear. It's not like that's the only way to. So I don't want anyone to listen to this and go, "Oh, I gotta scrap my opening." It's kind of like there's 1,000 ways to make music. There's 1,000 ways to open a talk. So just caveat. B. Stevens, what's up?
How's everybody doing?
Good. How
Real
are you?
good. No complaints at all. Real quick, and I've seen it, but I can't remember where I've seen it or how to do it. Sometimes the testimonials, people give like short feedback, and you can double up so that you don't have to put multiple. So you don't have to put a whole bunch of single line. How is it? Where is it so that you can double up on a slide, please?
Got your back. I'm gonna show you how to do that right now. Okay. So, boom. Let me just pull up my report here. Okay. So here's what you do. So when you come into your Talkadot report here, if you have like a more robust testimonial like this one, if you click on the 3 dots and go download shareable, it looks really good. But like B was saying, if I have like a singular one, like this one, which is just 1 line long, if I click on the 3 dots and go to download, it kind of has a lot of white space. So you have real estate to do more. So what you want to do, B, is just hit this star function, and that's going to take those one-liners and bring them to the top of your report. So I'm just going to hit star on a couple of these one-liners here. Boom. So you can take about 2 to 3 1 to 2 line testimonials. And then all you want to do after you've starred them, B, is go to share this report and then click download testimonials right here. And then it'll throw all of those onto one testimonial image instead of individually.
Perfect. I appreciate it. Now I'm gonna be cooking with hot grease. Thank you.
Hey man, hot grease is the best way to cook. Appreciate you, man. Harriet, what's up?
I'm good. I've been wanting to ask this question for so long, but I was afraid to sound
Shamar Moore
stupid.
is not my brother. Shamar, I get this all the time.
You
Shamar
look
Moore is
so
not
much like Shamar
not
Moore.
my brother. No. Go
You
ahead.
do. But what's the difference? What is a keynote? I know it's crazy that this is what I want to do, and I'm asking this question.
No, it's totally fine. This is why we're here.
Like, I think I know, and then I'm looking up, and then I go, oh, I don't know. Like, okay, help me out.
Yeah. Here's the best way. So every industry has different nomenclature. It's different language we use, right? So in our world, when we use the term keynote, that typically is a 45-minute, 30-minute to like say 75-minute, right? Like that. But 60-minute typically is like the golden rule. You do a 60-minute talk in front of like a lot of people. Okay. So that's typically when we use the term keynote. It's a 60-minute talk, typically around that 45 minutes, 75-minute. It can that's a little gray, but typically it's 60 minutes and it's in front of a bunch of people. And typically during a keynote, you're doing big ideas and storytelling. A workshop is typically, and not always, but typically it can be an hour long. It could also be 60 minutes, but the purpose of a workshop is
What's the difference
more.
between an hour and 60 minutes?
Yeah, I meant to say 2 hours. I apologize. You caught me.
Okay.
2 hours, but a workshop could be 60 minutes. It could be 45 minutes. Typically, it's longer, But a
Okay.
workshop is more about nitty gritty, hands on. Step one, you do this. Step two, you do this. Step three, you do this. So if you were to do like a keynote followed by a workshop, you
Okay.
might say, hey, here's these three big ideas. Here's how to make, if I was doing negotiation, like Rick was just talking about, right? So here's some negotiation strategies that work. That's the keynote. Then in the workshop, we might do role playing where I'm going to be like, all right, I'm going to bring someone up to the front of the stage, and we're now going to just spend the whole hour doing role playing of scenarios. That's kind of like a workshop. If you did a workshop, and typically workshops are smaller in size, they might be like 30 people, 40 people, 50 people, something like that, where a keynote is typically like, hundreds of people. And again, it could be 50 people in a keynote, it could be 50 people in a workshop. But the main distinction is a keynote is typically big ideas, and a workshop is typically more like specificity. And then you might also hear the term training. Sometimes people interchange workshop and training, but really a training is for an extended period of time. Like I'm doing a full day training. You don't do a full day keynote, right? Like you don't do a full day work. You could do a full day workshop, but typically when you go full day, 2 day, multiple day, that's a training because you're doing like in-depth, lots of teaching. So the typical baskets are keynote, workshop, training, and I'm sure there's like, there's Q&A panel and there's a lot of other like fringe things. But I'm giving you a long answer to try to be robust, but I realize I should probably dial it back. Keynote, big ideas, workshop, specificity. That's the short answer.
And just to pick your brain just a little bit. So I'm in nutrition. Tell me something that is big idea in terms of if you were here's, if you were to
Yeah.
give a nutrition
It's
session.
not what you eat, it's when you eat, right? My whole presentation is I don't care what you eat. I don't care what diet you eat. Just eat between 12 p.m. and 8 p.m. and you're going to change your entire life. And here's why it changes your whole life. And here's why it's super important. A workshop would be like, how do you deal with hunger pangs? How do you deal with when other people have breakfast and you don't, and you need to have a breakfast meeting and you're not going to eat breakfast? How do you stop yourself from eating after 8 p.m.? So, the big idea is like, ooh, I've never thought of it like that way. And the workshop is like, here's how you specifically do it. I'm not a nutritionist. Just an example, right? You might have better ideas than I do.
I like that. Thank you. That's helpful. By the way, I was looking for a topic for something exactly like that. So I'm going to steal that if you don't mind.
I listen, the more people eating healthier, the better off we are. So I'm actually a big believer, and I'm not a medical provider. I'm not giving medical advice here. I actually believe every single diet is just about caloric restriction. Like that's it. You just don't eat as much as you're eating and you'll be in a good place.
Yeah.
But
That's true.
don't follow Barbara, follow Harriet, don't follow me. I don't know what I'm talking about. These are just my personal philosophies here.
Thank you. That was helpful.
You're welcome. Jonathan, we got Jonathan Medina in the house. This could be, for those of you who don't know Jonathan, this could be the strongest professional speaker in the business. Maybe you, or maybe a dude named Solomon Wilkins, who's a friend of mine as well. But Jonathan, so good to see you, brother. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, actually, I do work with a friend of mine from Miami who was officially the strongest man in the world before, but he's old, so maybe I am stronger than him now. So maybe.
That's amazing. I mean, I don't know what to say to that. The strongest man in the world. That's insane.
He was the first person to bench press over 700 pounds raw without any equipment. But
see, that's my warm up. That's my warm up set, Jonathan. 700. That's what I do to warm up, man. Anyway, what's up, brother?
Yes, sir. Two quick questions. One, I know when I first used Talkadot was like in the early stages. I saw that you can customize some things, but can we customize to our own brand colors on a lot of that, or is that strictly the Talkadot colors? And the second question,
when you say brand, okay, sorry.
Sorry. The second question was, I believe that I've seen you post about being a part of the association before, like the national speaker, or you've commented on people's stuff when they talk about it. Can you coach up on why that would be a good idea or not a good idea to join?
Yep. So to answer your first question, the branding, if you want to like do your slide itself, you can just download your QR code and then create like a Canva slide or design it however you'd like. So on the slide, you can do that. In terms of our reports, those are all specifically Talkadot color and branding, because our goal is to build Talkadot as a trusted third party in the same way someone might go to Google reviews or go to Trustpilot and it has a certain feel and vibe that you can trust it. So we're building the output of that so that it's ours, so that when your clients get them, and we are actually starting to see that happen, which is really exciting, where clients are like, ooh, like I look forward to getting the Talkadot report because I know it's unedited, I know it's third party, I know it's trusted. But if you want to change your slide, and I'll just show this very, very quickly. If you go over to your codes, excuse me, you can either click on the three dots and go download slide, and then you get this whole image that we create for you. If you want to change this or edit this in any way, what I would recommend doing is clicking on the three dots here, and then where it says download QR code. So this is the exact same QR code that's actually on your slide right here. And then you can take that and throw that onto, however you want that slide to look or your contact page. So you have that optionality there, just so you're aware. Does that answer your first question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, cool. Second question, the NSA, National Speakers Association. The National Speakers Association, the way that I look at it, and I've been a speaker for many, many years, and I never got involved with NSA until someone said this to me, and I said, okay, I'm gonna get involved with NSA because I thought it was very smart. She asked me, how do I get help for my speaker related questions? And I was like, well, what do you mean? And she's like, well, like I have most of my friends are entrepreneurs. So I ask them like entrepreneur related questions. But when I have really, really specific questions to the speaking industry, I didn't really have a place that I could go. So she's like, well, that's why you go to the NSA, because everything about the NSA is speaking related. So if I have questions about, how do I break into a certain market? It's how I found out about ASAE as an example. So many of you have probably heard me talk about ASAE. I think it's a wonderful network. I've booked a lot of business out of it. It's the American Society of Association Executives. But I was looking for like what's the we'll take the youth market, right? Like what's like the gear up in that space, or what's the like NODA or APCA in like the corporate, in the business world. And I was able to like find out about things like ISAB talks as an example. Like I didn't know about that. I learned about this other speaker showcase, which I'm forgetting the name of it. I have it written down. But like ISAB talks is a speaker showcase in front of speakers bureaus. So it's things like that that are so industry specific that I wouldn't know how to get that answer from my entrepreneur friends, but people within the industry, it kind of just makes sense. So I like joining NSA because it allows me to get specific answers to specific questions that are just speaking related that I don't really have another place to go to get.
Yeah, so a lot of the community and specific targeted advice kind of stuff.
Exactly. 100%. 100%. That's the main benefit. If you already have that somewhere else, hey, like great. But I think NSA is it's a great collection, and like I'm part of certain like subgroups within NSA. So they have the general NSA, and then there's like subgroups within it. So you can get really specific advice from either different like demographics or different like business leaders, like based on like size of business. So that's been super helpful for me as a speaker within NSA.
Yes, and I think someone asked where my location was. I'm in Texas.
Yeah.
And thank you, Earl.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of, I think Texas, because it's a big state, they might have more than one. Someone tell me, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure Texas has like South Texas, North Texas, something like that.
I'm in the NSA North Texas. I'd love to have you join us virtually or in person.
There's D. Boom. Just so happen to have someone from a Texas NSA chapter on the call, which is wonderful. So maybe y'all could do a little LinkedIn connection, D and Jonathan. That'd be awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. Is it weird that whenever I meet someone from Texas, I'm just expecting them to have like an accent, and then when I don't hear it, I'm like, oh, that's right, Texas is huge. And then I remember, I tell you how American I am. I tell you, this is a personal thing. This is kind of embarrassing. I'll just share this with you. I was in Canada during the Olympics, and they were showing the Olympics, but they weren't showing any of the US teams. They were showing the Canadian teams. And I was thinking to myself, why are they not covering the USA in the Olympics? Like, that's weird. And I was like, oh, because I'm in Canada and this is their country. And not everyone cares about how many gold medals USA has. And I just did that with Texas. I'm gonna stop talking. That was just weird. I just walked myself into a corner that I can't get out of. All right. Deborah, thank you for saving me from myself. What's up? Oop, Deborah, are you raising your hand?
Yes.
There we
Can you
go.
hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Thanks. Okay. How are you?
How are you?
So I'm good. So I used Talkadot for the first time at a conference, a presentation 2 weeks ago, and I loved it. It was really amazing. So I'm in the follow-up stage now where I'm sharing the reports and I just think it's amazing. So congratulations.
Oh, thank you for using us.
Yes. So I spoke at the Florida Public Relations Association,
Mhm.
which is the largest public relations association in the country. And I remember a couple of webinars back, you suggested a system to use when you speak at one association when approaching like a branch of that
Mhm. Land
company.
and expand? Is it land
Is
and
that what
expand?
it is? Land and expand?
Well, yeah. Well, keep going with your question. I think I know where
Okay,
you're going
so
with it.
I spoke at Florida, so I want to
Yes.
approach maybe another public relations association and say, I spoke at the
Mhm.
Florida. What is that called, and where can I find the information
Yeah,
that you?
yeah. So that's called land. So it's something I call land and expand, right? So you land one and then you expand to similar organizations
Mhm,
because it's easier. So for example, if you speak to a public relations organization, to speak to another public relation organization, one, you already have historical evidence showing that you've been successful with them, so they can trust that you'll do a good job with their people. Two, it creates what's called the echo effect. The
mhm,
echo effect is oh yeah, I've heard of Deborah. She was awesome. I heard her speak at this event. Or, oh, you know what? That's so strange. My friend saw her speak at this one. You have a better chance of like your work reverbing if you, in my humble opinion, when you focus on a niche and you kind of go down that vertical, instead of what some people do is they go like, I'm going to speak to the concrete association, the car washer association, the noodle maker association, the financial planner group. You're all over the place, so you're not creating that. So that's the philosophy of it. The practicality of it looks like this. Let me just share my screen here. So what you would do is go over to your talk section, right? So let's
mhm,
just grab, we'll grab this report here. Actually, we'll grab this one. So this is the New York State United Way event that I spoke at, right?
mhm,
So I would then just go to share this report and copy this report link. And
mhm,
then I'm going to find, the Pennsylvania United Way conference, the Michigan United Way conference, right? I'm going to and I haven't done this yet, but if I did a little research online and found the other people, I'm then going to shoot them an email that says, hey, my name's Arel Moody. I just spoke at the New York State United Way conference. I see that you have the Pennsylvania State Conference coming up. I wanted to see if my message might be a good fit for your audience. Here's like a link to my website. Here's a link to the data report, which would be this report right here of
mhm.
what they said. Let me know who's the best person for me to get in touch with to pursue this more. Okay. So that's strategy one.
Mhm.
Strategy two is you just ask for advice first and then send the links and information second, right? Like I would try both to see what lands. So the first email might go, I go to the Pennsylvania, I go to the Michigan State Conference, or in your case, public relations, and say, hey, I recently spoke for the New York State Conference. I wanted to send my information over for consideration. Who's the best person for me to send that to from your organization? And then they'll reply back, and then I'll send them my video link and then my Talkadot report and then anything else that I think might be relevant. So that's and then you just kind of repeat that process over and over and over. And that's how you do it. It's real simple.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. May your public relations talks be spread out through the vertical of PR.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, cool. We got time for one more questionino. or pregunta if you speak Spanish. I don't know how to say question in any other language. I was going to try to test myself, but I'm not going to. So if you have a question, pull it up. If not, I'm going to do a little thank you for joining us on the AMA. So if you have your question, this is your chance to raise your hand. If you don't have a question, thank you for joining us. For those of you who don't know, we are doing our price increase, by the way. That is happening today. So if you are talking about light user and you want to get pro, you better do it today, because after today, you can get it. You should get it. It's still going to be, worthwhile on the ROI, but you'll get grandfathered or grandmothered into our current price point. So I highly, highly recommend, if you've not done so yet, to upgrade. If you don't want to upgrade, do you, baby? I ain't gonna tell you how to live your life. All I'm gonna tell you is you missing out. That's all I'm gonna say. You missing out. We got stuff on the other side that you'll like. I promise you. It's all the pro users love it. So if you are light, I highly, highly, highly recommend upgrading to pro today, like right now, because we are doing the changeover. For everyone else, like your grandmother, grandfathered in, you're good to go. So no worries there. Thank you, son. You want to say hi? Want to say hi?
Question for you.
Come say hi. My son just walked in the room. Say hi to the Talkadot artists. All right, you can go. Thank you, man. What's up, B. Stevens?
Speaking on the upgrade and whatnot, I'm already pro, but when they had the workshop with the young ladies the other week, they were talking about there's going to be another tier.
Yes.
When will we get a little bit more information on that and what that's going to include and whatnot?
Yeah, so we're going to be sending out an email that's going to have everything once it officially goes. So we're going to have an elite tier. And in the elite tier, there's going to be a couple of differences. Number one, elite is going to be for speakers who have a team. So if you're like a solopreneur, pro is going to be really good for you. Elite is going to have the ability for you to give different access to, say, your virtual assistant, or like if you're working with a team member who's offsite, but you don't want them to, get any sensitive information like credit card information or change, edit, delete. So you're going to be able to give roles to people. And we're going to be doing elite specific mastermind sessions and topics that are just for elite, where we're going to be going a little bit more into the trenches of the business side that are a little bit more appropriate for more advanced speakers. So those are the main things. And then we're going to be rolling out some new additions that are going to go into the elite, that you'll see that will. So when we roll out new features, some features will be rolled out for pro and some features will be rolled out just for elite. So elite will make sure they get all of the cool new stuff that we have coming out.
Okay, thank you.
All right, you're welcome, brother. Cool. Yes. Oh, if anyone wants to share, someone had messaged me about how do you share Talkadot. Log into your Talkadot account, and right here where it says refer and earn on the left-hand side of your menu, you have a link right here. You can copy this link and share it with people. You also have a QR code. If you ever, this is your referral QR code. So if you're ever at like a conference and you're like, oh my gosh, you got to get Talkadot, and they're like, ooh, how do I get it? And you're like, oh, I got to send you a link. Or you could just take out your phone, have them scan the QR code with their camera, and then it'll directly go there. But this link is just copy this link and share that with people. And you can, they'll get a little bit of a discount for using your link. And you'll be able to get $50 every time they upgrade to pro. Once we do our price change over, you're going to be able to get $75 for every person that you upgrade. So it's a nice little thing there for them. So use that, and that's how you get to share your referral link. Cool. All right, y'all. I'm gonna let y'all go. Listen, if you want to talk a lot, make sure to use yourself some Talkadot. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna see if I could. I'm gonna read this on the way out. I just want to grab this here. I didn't have it. Yeah. You know what? Here we are. I just want to share this with y'all. This is something that I think is really meaningful, and I'm gonna do this on our way out. So this is the Talkadot Manifesto. This is the kind of soul behind who we are and what we do. And I just want to read this more and more because it really is about what drives who we are and what we do. At Talkadot, we are a community of professional speakers that view speaking as an honored craft that deeply impacts lives. This is a skill that we constantly care about getting better at and perfecting. It's an infinite game that we constantly get better at, That's why we get feedback. We know we are never done getting better. We know there's always another level, and we endlessly pursue that next level. Where others dial it in, we go to the next level. We realize that we should do everything we can to ethically grow our business, because the more we speak, the more lives we impact. And we believe that doing well while doing good in the world go hand in hand. We have big visions, but we take big action too. We share our impact with the world, not because it's about showing how great we are, but about showing the greatness in the audience we help create. We are constantly perfecting our craft and are humble enough to know there's always more to learn. We have an abundance mindset and know there is so much opportunity in this industry and in this world, so we always lift as we climb. Because of this, we are different, we are unicorns, we are Talkadot. So that is the Talkadot Manifesto, y'all. This is who we are and what we do. Thank you so much for being part of us today, and I hope to see y'all on our next one. Take care.